more seriously, and
Yeah,
this is interesting. So
it's interesting. That's the right word for it. It's very interesting.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
listen, Jason gets to wear my shoes, right?
because
He
he's
gets to
telling some stories you shared, and I'm like, I don't know if this thing is good for our health. Like, I don't.
it's there's parts of it that are good, and then there's other parts that are not.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's exciting though. It's really cool to see your child develop, just see that growth over the years. That's really exciting and seeing them have that mental toughness to
Yeah,
deal with
and
adversity that
you don't get it back.
I know
My wife just told me this 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
she's right.
Time, you know,
She's
my
right.
son is a senior in high school, so this is,
I can't even believe
and
that.
moving off to college is going to be different, and then we won't get to spend that same type of time together.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's crazy
it is.
for all
It
to
is.
happen. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on, talking again. I always enjoy our conversations when we talk about what you do and then how it really does um, affect or not affect, but how we can apply it to what I do or what the company does for youth athletes.
Mhm.
And I reached out because my main question was, what is going on today with our youth athletes not integrate, they're so disconnected from everything but yet connected, right, because of screen
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And the effects that we're seeing from screen time on the performance side is different between male and female.
Hmm.
I've noticed that it's not as prevalent right now in young kids. When I mean young, by like ages 10, 11,
Hmm.
because it's not
Yeah.
affecting them as much right now. But the
Hmm.
13, 14, 15-year-old groups, it is wild to see what's
Yeah.
going on and how it's affecting their performance,
Yeah.
how it's affecting their injury rates,
Hmm.
and amongst a million other things that you could probably just discuss about. But
Yeah.
I made this comment to you through text. It is that it's a disassociation drug.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are looking, we need to look at screen time as, would you give your kid alcohol or marijuana
Hmm.
or any other thing at that moment? And I'm a parent, I get it, I'm in it. I have a 12-year-old that enjoys her screen time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are we doing?
When you text and called it a dissociation drug, I was like, that's it. That's it. That's exactly what it is. Because I'm not just seeing this with teenagers, I'm seeing it with their parents, right? Because at my practice, we essentially see the entire family. We see them as young as 4, all the way up to
How
the
old?
parents.
4?
Yeah, we see them
Okay.
as young as 4, right? We
Okay.
have a therapist that now sees children at our practice, the young children. And then we also get their parents. So we're giving parenting support, couple support, and all these types of support. And we're having the same conversation. So just imagine this. We're having the exact same conversation as young as 4 to their parents. That's profound.
That's wild.
That is wild. So,
How is that message? How if I'm a 4-year-old, or
yeah.
if I'm the parent of the 4-year-old, what does that
Yeah.
message sound like?
So we're talking about structure with flexibility and this concept of everything in moderation. And what does that look like in your home? Right? So we're asking parents when we're talking with parents of our younger clients, especially, but of course our teenagers as well. Let's talk about what your schedule looks like in the week. How much time are you all getting to FaceTime with each other in person, no devices, actually learning each other, knowing what makes one person tick, what doesn't make the other person tick. What are your child's favorites?
So what you're alluding to, it still starts at home.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
thought I had this on mute.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but so everything starts inside the house. We know from
100%.
behavioral trauma, generate whatever. And I don't want to overemphasize the word trauma or mental health or mental
But
illness.
it's prevalent.
But it is prevalent.
Trauma is prevalent. So yeah.
The screen time, the behaviors, all of that, the boundaries set up in the home.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, I can imagine that those teachers are having the same amount of struggles.
Yeah.
Because they're not able to get maybe kids to focus as much, or you see the behavioral issues. Now they're being diagnosed with ADD more, ADHD more, that trend is continuing to climb.
Yes.
On the performance side, we are seeing it where we are giving sets of instructions and not able to adhere to the instructions. Wow. We have to show them a video.
Wow.
A little bit more than, like, we would have to record what we want them to do, or show them themselves in a video of, this is where we need you to be, this is what needs to be. And this is again, this is not but we're seeing this more and more where we're having to actually use video more rather than verbal cues and verbal instructions. So the way that we are having to coach is much different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Even that's so profound to me, right? Because I think coming up in the school systems, I've always heard that, hey, you all learn very differently.
Right.
But to hear you now talk about the need to have the videos more frequently, it's like, but what about those differences in learning? Are we now conditioning a whole society to take information in almost identical?
We are. We are mass hypnotizing how we give information. Yeah. How kids are, how kids are really getting their information, how teachers are delivering the information, whether now everything is digital through iPads, and there's no really homework as much. I'm sure there's private schools that, or even public schools that are still providing paper assignments, but as kids are getting older, the paper goes away, the handwriting goes away. And it's not me being old fashioned, it's me going, there's still a reason for texture, there's still a reason to understand, like, how much your brain neurologically goes, I know how much to pick up this pencil, I know how to pick up this. So neurologically, the brains I think are being now wired differently from such a young age. And how it's affecting performance, and it's changing the athletic culture. I think it's going to have such a profound effect 15 years from now that sports themselves will change, and we're already seeing it a little bit.
I was going to say, I think if someone would deny the profound effect that technology has had on us as a society, be it positive or negative, that means you haven't been present for the last decade plus, right? We're seeing a huge change. Obviously, with everything, there's the pro and con side. The cons are what we need to look at and start having conversations on, are these cons outweighing pros at this point? Like, obviously, we know that we have all the information in the world at our fingertips, but when you can have that amount of access and still be so disconnected, we need to be having conversations. Right?
What is literature, or what is your most current information show how to deliver this information to parents? Like, how is it best delivered so the athlete understands what's going on?
Well, a lot of times we always lead with education, and we insert education, in the midst of all of the work that we do in sessions, because one thing that we never want is for anyone to feel attacked or judged when they come in our offices, right? That is the total opposite of what you want to have in a therapeutic setting. It's open arms, no judgment. Let's talk about what your presenting needs are and develop an action plan to help alleviate or address whatever it is that brought you into therapy. So a lot of times with parents, we're saying, okay, what are the presenting concerns? When did you notice that they started? Let's think about at that time when those presenting concerns began to show themselves, they began to manifest, what changes may have been happening in your child's life. Now, technology is definitely not the sole trigger for all the things that we see that come into our office. But I want to say more often than not, technology is part of the conversation. Because when parents are saying to us, I told my child I needed to take their phone, for instance, because they got in trouble, and the child is verbalizing suicidal ideations, because that's what that I'm telling you, that is more common than I'm happy to admit. You know what I'm saying? Like this is what we're hearing.
This is
That, and we have to
that's
sit with the team and we have to say, hey, do you, first of all,
do you even understand what you're saying?
do you understand the magnitude of what you're saying?
That
One.
is
Two, if you are legitimately experiencing suicidal ideations, there is some steps that we can take to support you in addressing this. However, we don't want to go left when you really need us to go right. We want to know for sure that we're on the same page about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, and then support you in addressing that concern. Because the reality is, for every action, there's a reaction. For everything that you do, there's a consequence or a reward.
correct.
So once we understand that basic concept, then we can help you, manage how you feel about it. Do you have the right to be upset? Do you have the right to be sad? Do you have the right to be all these things? 150%. But is it that you truly are suicidal? Do you really want to end your life? Or this is just so, devastating in this moment, and you don't know how to say that? Because I can support you as a therapist in bringing those things to words, right? So these are conversations we're having in the therapy rooms all the time, where parents are saying, is it okay to give my child that consequence because I know how it would affect them? Well, does the consequence match the behavior? Let's talk about that, right? Because I can't tell you what to do and what not to do with your child in your home. I'm not in your home, right? You are the expert on your home. I'm the expert in mental health. But if you say the child is getting in trouble in school, and part of their getting in trouble is because they're always on their phone, they're being disrespectful while on their phone, it sounds like the phone is the factor that needs to be removed. So let's talk about that. So just imagine that's where we are, that parents are concerned about consequencing their children because of their children's responses to the consequence. That's a different ballgame.
Yeah, and what you're saying is so prevalent. It happened on the field last week.
Wow.
Where a girl's parent took their phone away.
Yeah.
She couldn't perform.
I believe it.
She was more concerned about her phone, what were the parents doing? She got in trouble, whatever. And she could not perform. Wow. It was a verbal this was a verbal conversation I am having with an athlete, and going, hey, you know what? There was something that you probably had done, and she admitted it. All right, well, that's the reaction. And what you just said, there is a cause and effect. But you know what? Why don't you use this time to work a little bit harder, or have a little use the energy placement and try to perform. And finally, within the session, we were able to, she was able to increase her intensity, and she was able to work. But that moment, I utterly go, I have to talk to someone about these things.
Yeah.
This is going above and beyond like your typical, it's in every facet of life. And I know that there's people out there that are listening to this, are going to watch this and go, yeah, we've been dealing with this for years and you're just now seeing it. Maybe I'm being a little bit slower, but or I'm really trying to be as forward thinking as possible when it comes to how we're managing athletes and their loads. At the professional level, it's different. They're managed much differently. And parents have to you're saying that parents aren't managing homes anymore.
So
Well, I don't want to put those words in your mouth. That's what I'm hearing.
yeah, I'm saying that many parents that we interact with in the therapy session are having a hard time co-parenting with technology. How about we say it like that, right? That technology
I like
has
it. All
become
right. Yeah, we'll take it.
such a staple in the home that now the parent is considering the technology in their decisions concerning their children. And that's something that a parent did not have to consider that, or would even consider it, right? There wouldn't even be that amount of consideration being given. But
Yeah.
now I have parents saying to myself and other clinicians, what do I do if my child refuses to do ... if I take their phone? What do
Right.
I do if my child says they're thinking about ending their lives because I took their phone? You will follow the safety plan that we put in place, because this is not something we're going to play with. If your child is threatening suicide, we have a safety plan. There's some steps that you have to follow, because our number one priority at that point is keeping your child safe. If your child is upset, feelings are healthy. So these are the conversations we're having in sessions. We're reminding parents that, hey, it's okay for your child to be upset with you. Remember, y'all aren't friends. Even in friendships, we get mad at each other. It's
right.
okay. There's a reason that you're the parent and they're the minor. There's a reason. It doesn't mean all parenting decisions are 100% right. We
Yeah,
know
of
that,
course.
right?
Of course.
None of us are without fault, but there's a reason that you're in the position you're in and they are in the position that they're in. So let's rally together. Let's figure this out, because the behavior that they exhibited, it warrants a consequence, and the consequence should not be subjected to how they will receive it. The
Right.
consequence
Okay.
should align with the behavior, not are they going to be able to handle this? But those are the conversations that we're having. And to hear you talk about the athletes, I've worked with several student athletes myself and ex-professional athletes as well. We're having the same conversation of, well, before you go into a game, if the last thing you were focused on was, for my younger ones, Roblox, or, my older ones, it's a lot of Snapchat, TikTok, that type of stuff.
Or, yeah.
When are you locking in for the game? Are you locking in when you are stepping on the field or the court? Is that when you're choosing to lock in? Because that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
You need to be locked in before.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, because I think when you're having those conversations with those athletes,
Yeah.
I don't know if those athletes are, listen, there's just athletes that can do that. They're just so talented. They can just do what they want to do, hop in a game, perform well, and hop out. But the majority that say they want to play at the next level, whatever that level is, whether it's high school to college, college to pro, whatever it is, I don't think they understand anymore what that really does mean, what that actually takes. They're not willing to study film. They're looking at Snapchat before they go play.
Literally. Yeah.
How often are you seeing that? Like is that something that you're seeing more of now, or is it something you're like, yeah, this is something they've been doing?
Yeah, this is something I've been seeing for some time. I would say it continues to ramp up, just based on trends and things that are going on. So yeah, we've been seeing it for some time though in the therapeutic setting. And oftentimes I use examples of the athletes who have made it where they want to be. And I'll say, even those athletes, when you see them warming up in the gym, tell me of a time you saw one of them just head down, terrible posture in their device, and their teammates are warming up. I've watched quite a bit of professional sports on TV. I've gone to games in person. I enjoy all of it. I personally have never witnessed that. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but I've never gone to the Jag Stadium, for example, and seen the team suited up practicing, and a suited up player, even the ones injured, they're out there too. I have personally never witnessed someone when they're supposed to be warming up on that level, highest level, on their device. So I try to tell them, like, I know, I get it. I'm a therapist. I'm not where you want to be. Like, because that's that teenage mentality. I
Of course,
totally
of
get
course.
it.
Yeah.
I said, but give me an example of an athlete you admire that you see that is their behavior or their conditioning when they're about to go out and perform at the highest level. And I've never gotten an answer of an athlete they're able to point out doing that. And I said, there's a reason. Yeah, there's structure and ways, there's conditioning, mental, emotional, physical conditioning that happens to get there. But where technology has, and this is where I see a negative to technology, it has created this sense of instant gratification, right? So when you can reference an athlete who, became known or became popular from some TikToks,
Yeah.
right?
So
And some
an
IG
influencer.
reels, they're like, but, you know, Miss T, but at the same time, this can happen. I say, yeah, but they're 1 in a million. That's not
They're
everybody's
not understanding that
story.
there's an algorithm
Yeah, and that's not
behind that, and this
everybody's
is how the
story.
algorithm is
Yeah,
designed. That there's another person that is, selecting videos, and oh, that's
right,
funny. There's
right.
also there's more to it than what they're obviously seeing.
Than the naked eye. And even if it appears that, okay, it's not more to it, even if that's the case, that's not the story for every athlete. If you look through the NBA, if you look through the NFL, if you look through NHL, any of them, if there's a roster of 30 players for every team, it's not going to be somebody that got discovered online
Correct.
and
Yeah.
made it to that level.
Right.
No, they may have been seen. It doesn't mean they made it on that level. So that's what I keep telling them. Like, you don't know if you're going to be that 1 in a million, but why not increase your chances by conditioning and doing what you're supposed to do, managing your time?
Yeah, but that takes work,
Yeah,
Miss
even
T. That's a
that
lot.
takes work. Yeah, even that.
Yeah.
All of it takes work. So
Yeah.
we're having these conversations that I think technology has sabotaged a bit, this idea that I can do a little and get a lot, because that's the messaging on social media. Just do this. It's easy. Even for us
Correct.
adults, it's everywhere. You want to
Yeah.
make a quick million? Just do this. You want to make
Yeah.
so
Download
there's
this app, invest here, and you're gonna see
and
this
you'll
money
be
grow.
rich. You'll never have to work another day in your life. So the difference between us and a teenager, even a college student, that judgment, that frontal lobe of our brain is fully developed as an adult. And even we get caught in scams like that. So imagine the 15-year-old brain, the 14-year-old brain that says, oh, someone saw their Instagram reels and they got to warm up with the team. I could do that. And they wholeheartedly believe it.
So you brought up uh, the frontal lobe and development, and
Yeah.
this is where I really think that we're having some issues. Just
Yeah.
decision making, what's
Mhm.
reality, what are the parameters
Yeah.
of, yes, this is the professional athlete, you see him online, and this is the,
Right.
professional, TikToker or whatever it is. And yeah,
Mhm.
you can make money doing and becoming an influencer,
Oh,
or a
yeah.
comedian or whatever it is
Mhm.
online.
Mhm.
But that's their pathway. That's not what you're asking for. You're asking to be a
So,
professional athlete, or you're asking to
right.
be a collegiate athlete.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't, it's very hard to be both. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So the frontal lobe,
Mhm.
you, we know right now, 25 years of age.
Yes.
That's when it's fully developed.
Yes.
We can consume alcohol at 21.
Mhm.
We can smoke at 18, I think. Maybe 21 now. I don't know if the laws
I
changed.
mean, at this point, once
But
they,
hey, we
yeah,
got vaping. We can vape.
yeah, we're
Okay.
vaping in middle school
We're vaping in middle school.
right now.
We're it's cool to do.
Yeah.
Um, they just don't think they don't understand because they're not developed, right? Their decision making is what
Right.
but it's affecting their performance on the field.
Yes.
We're for football, for example. If we're
Mhm.
doing tackle football and
Yeah.
our frontal lobe is not developed, and we're head to head little micro collisions all the time, how is that not affecting personality change? How is that not affecting decision making? How is that not?
Yeah.
And again, I think in the next generation of athlete, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
These athletes today are extremely talented.
Yeah. Very. Next
They're
level.
very
Next
athletic.
level.
They are I mean,
Yeah.
we are seeing some genetically freaked athletes.
Yeah. Superhuman type.
Yes, but the window of athlete for me and what my view is, that window is now
Yeah.
shortening
Yeah.
because there's not as much activity in
Mhm.
schools, right? Social media has declined physical, going outside and riding bikes and skateboards and just being a kid.
Mhm.
But it's also taken that practice time away. It's taken the
Yeah.
skill development time away. It's, time to get into the weight room. Again, I
Right.
think that what I'm seeing is that because those frontal lobe is not developed and we're taking in, we're not learning.
Right.
They're not, I don't know the literature, but I know if you read something on paper, your brain has to work, your eyes have to
To
work,
process it.
yeah, it's cognitive.
Process. Yeah.
That process is now majority of it has been removed.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
So
and there's lots of research about the impact of technology on the brain. And I mean, if we want to be honest, a lot of times this research is funded by the beneficiaries of,
that's a whole nother subject. But go ahead.
right, which is a whole nother thing. Dare I even step into that? So there's all types of research about it. But what we do know is that this idea that things happen like this has really distorted the critical thinking process, right? The ability to think
Meaning
outside of
the
the
ability
box,
to problem solve.
problem solve, critical thinking, right? Because, in our field, there's lots of different theories and concepts and research about when critical thinking develops, right? But we're actually seeing, and this is not from any official research I've done, so let me
Just
just go ahead
anecdotal.
and that. I'm talking about being a therapist and interacting with people. And I've been in the field now for over 15 years. So I'm thinking about when I entered the field working with teenagers to where I am now. My teenagers, when I started, they were a bit more savvy in reference to thinking outside of the box. My teenagers now are savvy as it relates to working around things, right? So specifically,
Meaning their specific problem, they can work around that.
shortcutting.
Shortcutting. Okay.
Shortcutting. Yeah, my teens now are like, well, I could kind of finagle if I can go my first 2 weeks of school, go for midterms, go around the last week, make sure I take my testing. I should be able to land myself in the spot to meet requirements, right? That's kind of the conversations I'm having. I'm saying, well, though that may be true, explain to me what you're doing with all that downtime, because you're finding a way to have more free time. Cool. So you got the free time. What are you going to do with it that's not going to cost you later? They can't.
So being proactive in
Yeah. So cool. You found a way to save yourself some time. Genius. Now what are you going to do with it? You're going to lay around and be on social media watching the lives of other people, watching them be productive?
So so they're trying to take the shortcut, but then they end up taking a very long path.
Yeah, the consequences.
The consequence is the other side to that short decision.
Yeah, and let me say this. Now, I have some seniors where they don't have much left to meet their requirements, so their days are shortened, right?
Yeah.
So they can say, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and these are some of my locked-in teams. I was able to get a shortened schedule. I only have to go to school on A days. For example, on my B days, I'm gonna work part-time, and then I'm gonna hit the gym because I know graduation's coming. I got a couple scouts coming out. Cool. I like that. I like how you're thinking. You're getting the downtime, but you're also being super productive and constructive, which means it's a very low likelihood that you're going to put yourself in a bad situation with this idle time, right? So I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about the situation where, our teens are not showing up to the weight room, or they're complaining every time they got to go to the weight room. They're complaining for every practice. But when I say, well, what are you going to do as an alternative if you're not there? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. But you said you want to get to that level. Do you really understand how much work, which is what you're talking about, how much work it takes
It's
to
so
get
much
on
work.
that level?
It's
There's
so
oh,
much work. It's
it's
not
so
just
it's an unreal amount of work. There's but so many slots on the roster. And for you to beat the other hundreds of people out, there has to be something that stands out. And it's not going to happen from you laying around in your bed watching TikTok. Like, let's be honest. You got to get up and go make some things happen.
exactly. Yeah.
So those are
What
the things
are
that happen.
what are some strategies that you have laid out for, let's go on both, because what we're talking about is also like the pendulum of you know, those that are not critical thinkers
Mm-hmm.
or that are having issues to those that are actually, you know, applying technology to their
Yeah.
benefit.
Yeah.
But what are some of the strategies if I'm a parent and I get to hear this, I get to watch this,
Yeah.
what are some strategies you go, hey, this is, if you're in this situation, here's a few things that you can do.
Yeah. So I like to think about it as getting back to basics. Go back to quality time. Go back to sitting in front of each other. Go back to running some errands together where technology is not involved. And this is where it gets tricky for parents. You have to abide by that rule too. So don't take the phone from your child, but you're dissociated in your own world, in your phone, right? Create a playlist that y'all like to listen to. Throw on Pandora, throw on something that you both enjoy,
Okay.
and spend time together. So that's one of the first things. Get back to spending time together, right? Figure out, okay, what are your favorite things to eat? Let's make a meal together. Your athlete is practicing and doing all these different things. Okay, so when you're there, how are you locking in? What are you doing to take care of yourself while your athlete is there? Sometimes you might be on your phone, but are they seeing you be active? Because that's the other thing. What you're preaching, is it aligning with your behavior? Because this generation is not the do as I say, not as I do. This is not them.
Yeah.
This is not them. So they have completely changed the game on parenting, and it's not all bad, if I'm being honest. They are the
No, it can't be
generation.
all bad. I
Yeah, it's
do know,
not.
right? It's not. I
It's
do,
not.
and
It's not.
again,
It's do as I say and as I do. Right? So if I'm telling you, hey, you got to get up out your bed and get moving, what am I doing while I'm telling you that? So that's some of the action steps. Match the same energy that you're giving to your child. Some of the things that you're trying to create moderation in their lives for, try to create it in your life. Get moving, get active, so it doesn't feel like such a task, or it doesn't feel hypocritical even when you're communicating it to them. Remember that you're the adult.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
other thing I tell parents all the time. No, you're the adult.
yeah.
9.5 out of 10 times you're paying for these stuff. Remember that too. Remember how they
That's a
got it. Like,
that's a
remember you're
pretty
paying for
important
it.
part of, yeah, you and I don't want to say it like I'm being old, but it's like, well, you have a roof over your head, you have clothes on your back. How do you get all these things?
Yeah, like
Because
your parents about to go
before
home.
you, right, my parents had to do the same thing and their parents had to do the same. It's
Mhm.
what we have to do.
Yeah, so we have to remember our role in our children's lives, and our first priority is to be their parent. Everything else comes after, right? So as a parent, it is our responsibility to lay a solid foundation, as solid as we know how to lay, for our children in every aspect, right? So remember that sometimes they're not going to be happy. Sometimes they will be happy. Consequences are not unhealthy. Discipline is necessary. We need discipline. And in our reality, our children want discipline, but they don't like how it feels. But we
Mm.
need structure. We like structure because structure creates routine, which creates predictability, which keeps anxiety and stress lower.
So I want to put a piece in there really quick, because when you
Yeah.
talk about discipline,
Yeah.
if I'm a coach and you're not performing, so therefore you're not starting, you barely make it into rotations, you barely make it on the roster, whatever it looks like. What we see in, let's say, the AAU or club setting, or the private side is,
Mm-hmm.
well, the parent just go, oh my, Johnny's not playing.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna leave this team and go to this team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pay to
Yeah.
play model, and I'm paying, you're gonna play him or
Yeah.
her or whatever the
Yeah.
case is. that discipline the
Mhm.
parent has created.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
so the discipline has to come from the parent first to go, no, we're going to stay. You just have to work a little bit harder.
Mhm.
Are you doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So as a strategy, when you say that, right, we know that it starts at home, but
Mhm.
the parental strategy is, I think, take a second, slow down,
Slow down. Yeah.
and then look at what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. When you started talking about this, I smiled because it's a conversation that I have, especially on the AAU circuit. I talk
Mm-hmm.
about this a lot. The athlete that hasn't been on the same team ever for 5 consecutive years, 6 years, because they've hopped every time they've been unhappy. Um, so one of the things that I would suggest very strongly, and I'm not at all advocating against changing teams. I'm advocating about premature changes.
Premature shit. Yes. Yeah.
That's what we're
Thank you for
talking about,
clarifying. Yeah,
right?
that's absolutely
That's what
right.
we're talking about. So the first thing I would say is communicate. Get with the coach. Talk with the coach, because without talking to the coach, you're getting a very one-sided idea of what's going on. Even as a parent sitting in the stands, you don't have the full story. Parents,
No,
us in the stands, we do not have the full story. And I know that for a fact. Here's why. Our children spend a lot of time with their coaches. Our coaches are an extension of us in terms of parenting and guardianship in many ways. Whether we want to call it that or not, our children
that's what
spend a lot
exactly
of
what it is. Same
time.
thing with teachers, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say it's with the teachers. When we calculate the amount of hours that we spend apart from our children, we need to be on one accord with our children's teachers, coaches, what have you. So what I would suggest before you get to the decision of switching, and you may still end up switching, but try to have a conversation. Talk with coach. Ask coach very intentional questions. What is it going on with my athlete that you're working on? Or what is it that you would like to see different in them? What are their areas that they're struggling in right now? What are the areas that they're thriving in right now? What are some suggestions you have for me that I can support my child outside of practices, outside of games? Because a lot of things that I see are the attitude. Our children they're bright and they listen. So even when you think you're having private conversations amongst adults, they hear a lot of this stuff. When parents and coaches or parents and teachers are not in alignment, that is an opportunity for our children to split. And that creates division and it creates chaos. The faster we can get on the same page with the adults in our children's lives, the better it is. So even if you're displeased with your child riding the bench, because somebody's gonna ride that bench a little bit, get with
Yeah.
the coach. Coach,
100%.
what's going on? I believe my child is skilled. Why aren't they getting playtime? And the coach might just tell you their attitude sucks. I don't care how, and depending on the coach, that's what they'll say.
Sure.
Here's
Sure.
how skilled your child is. They disrespectful. They're not a team player. They're selfish. So they're sitting down. Got it. So I can just speak for myself as a parent. We got some character work to do.
Right.
It may
Right.
not be that this team is not the right team, but there's not many sports where you win the game by yourself. And we're talking about team sports, right?
Right.
We're
Right.
not talking about tennis or something that you play by yourself. We're talking about team sports, organized team sports. If you want to be a member of a team, you have to start thinking about the whole. So we got some character development to do, and it's possible that it can happen under the same coach.
So one of the things, team sports, the message was like early on would be, well, this is going to help you off later on in life when you get into the workforce.
Yeah.
When you get into the workforce, you got to be a part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I think that message is gone because you don't have to be a part of a team to get into the workforce, right? You can be an Uber driver. You can be self-employed, right? You can do all of these things on your own.
Yeah.
But it's not teaching that message of them being like, hey, this is part of You know, if you go into a workforce, you're going to be around other teams. Even though if you're going to work individually, your individual work is part of this larger project. And in order to be successful, to get that bonus, to, you know, climb up the ladder, to do whatever it is, you have to work together as a team. Your individual effort is needed. And I think the individual efforts today are so subpar that we see these subpar results on the team aspect of it.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's what I'm saying. I see these things being like just my lens. And again, anecdotal, it's not, you know, I don't have any data or research or papers. I'm just saying what it looks like as a trainer who I spend the majority of my day working with youth athletes. You know, we do functional movement screenings. Their bodies are going to change. But are we adapting and doing any type of cognitive screening as well? Are we, you know, there's those things I think are needed to be done now to see how are we able to best coach this athlete? How are you able to best coach this team? All of this information is different now.
It is. It's really different. And there's this strong sense of, if you don't like it, leave. If you don't want to be a part, don't. Right. So even in the instance of if you're self-employed and an Uber driver or doing Grubhub or something of that nature, you know, in examples like that, I'm still, and this is adults too that I'm having these conversations with, you're still a part of a whole. Even as an entrepreneur, you got to understand you're still depending on other parts of the system to work well. Right.
And it's not, and I'm not knocking the Uber driver or DoorDash,
no,
right?
No,
because
it's
I
not
use
a
it all the
knock.
time.
It's just the idea.
But what I'm saying is that, yes,
you're never totally by
representation,
yourself.
You're representing that brand.
Correct.
I could leave a horrible review based on your performance, right? That's all I'm saying is that even in the they're missing that their thought. Like, it's not, obviously, again, this goes back into what information is out there, and we have a vast landscape now of information.
No, it's true. This concept of you're always a part of a system. It doesn't matter, you know, if you go out there and you work independently, you will always be part of a system. An entrepreneur is part of a system, and you need other parts of the system to work. So this concept of I don't have to, I don't want to, so I won't, it is flawed, because it doesn't matter where you go in your career or what you decide to do, you are always part of a system. It doesn't matter. We're entrepreneurs and we're part of a system.
Of course. Of course. And again, sometimes you want to blame the system. You got to point a finger, well, this didn't work out well. And again, this is case by case, but at the very core of it, are you doing the work to get in? Are you doing the work to succeed? It's okay. So let me ask you this, because before we go, I want to dive into mental toughness. And in part of it's not physical. Mental toughness for me has never been physical. It's doing the small things repeatedly to get better at those big things. And again, there you may have information that says, well, there is a physical component. I'm sure there is. But it's doing the small things of waking up, getting breakfast in, or, you know, going to bed a little earlier, staying off social media, screen time. From a clinician standpoint, how can we get our kids to be more, mentally tough?
There's several things, but some of the immediate things that come to mind is routine, honoring routine, you know, making them a part of developing routine, right? So for instance, let's say your athlete has practices 3 times a week, games on the weekends, because that's a typical athlete. I think we both got the Amber Alert at the same time, huh?
Yeah, Amber
Um,
Alert, unfortunate,
um,
as we're talking about kids.
right, as we're talking about children, we both get the Amber Alert technology, right? That's a positive that can happen in that way. So making your child a part of routine development. So one of the conversations that we have in our home, all the time is, okay, if you have practice at 6, how well have you hydrated throughout the day? What has your diet been like? You have realized that when you eat dough and fried foods, you get cramps, right? So you have practice 3 times this week. Did you think about that as you were going through your day? So that's what I'm talking about. Make them a part of the conversation versus saying, this is your routine and this is how you're going to do it. So challenge them to think for themselves and understand the rationale behind the routine, right? So you stretch before you get active for a reason. Let's talk about that. So if you do a 2-minute stretch, but you're about to play for an hour, you didn't have to
Are
do
you
that.
really, you're talking about the preparedness. You're talking about being, your mental toughness is just about being how well prepared you are.
Yeah, it's preparation, because the reality is it's also this, it's knowing that adversity will come. So mental toughness, when you have a solid routine that it becomes ingrained in you, when the adversity comes, you're not as easily moved. Now, are you impacted? Of course, because you're human and you can feel and you can see, right? But you're not as easily moved when you already are solid in a
Yeah.
routine.
And,
So the
and this,
mental toughness is also knowing adversity will come and then being able to respond to adversity and not cave. That's the part.
yeah. So that goes back to, again, the girl that loses her phone and she's distraught and right. She's not having a mental toughness moment. She's
Mhm.
being mentally weak and she's given in and caved in, and it took her,
She's caved. She's caved, correct.
cave.
But I'll tell you, going back to that example that you gave me, in an instance like that, when we're working with that child, that teen, I will be asking the parents, prior to this incident, what have the consequences looked like? Because that is also part of why our children respond the way they do. If you go from one extreme to the next, what do you expect from your child? This is what I'm saying. If they, let's say we're in March already, so we're well into the school year looking at summer break. They've gotten in trouble September, October, November. There's been no consequence, just a lot of talk.
Mm.
You get to March and you take this phone. Of course they're in a disarray. It seems dramatic in comparison to your previous responses. It seems very dramatic.
Okay. Yeah.
So we may
So
be looking and saying, I mean, she's got to be able to handle that. She's got to be able to manage that. Agreed. However, we also need to consider her conditioning leading up to that incident. Has she been conditioned to believe there's no real consequences for my choices?
how do you go backwards? If you're a parent that
Yeah,
took the phone away in March and you didn't do anything the previous months, that's the pendulum, right? That's that swing that we were talking about. Where,
yeah,
but now, how do you like, how do you start to correct some of these behaviors within the parent
yeah.
to make those small corrections along the way? So when maybe the phone didn't get taken away, in maybe it was another form of punishment. I don't
Mm-hmm,
know.
mm-hmm.
Um, but then it happens again, and then the phone does get taken away.
Right.
What can you do as a parent?
One of the first things that has to happen is the parent has to recognize their inconsistency.
Okay.
If the parent doesn't recognize their inconsistency, it's bound to keep happening, right? So in everything we do in therapy, self-awareness, self-awareness, you got to check in with you. So the parent has to be able to recognize that, you know what, this behavior has actually become a pattern that I have not addressed, and that's how we got here, right? So recognize the inconsistency. The next thing is, as things come up, address them when they come up, and try not to make threats or promises that you're not going to honor.
Mm-hmm.
When we get frustrated as parents, and sometimes we say, next time I'm gonna
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. Are you going to?
Right.
Are you going to?
Right.
Or would it have reset by then? So instead of doing that in the moment when it happens, and it doesn't always have to be taking the phone. Sometimes it's, we've gotten into this habit where you come home and you're pretty much on the phone for 6 hours. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna scale it back a little bit. You're still gonna have your phone, but we're gonna do hands-off technology 9:30, 10 o'clock, depending on their age. I'm gonna keep the phone in the morning. You up moving about, you can have your phone again. I don't have an alarm. Can you tell I've had these conversations?
Ooh,
Oh, that's easy. Walmart, Target, Big Lots, they have old school alarms. We're gonna plug it
I
in,
got
throw a
clocks.
battery in there.
Mhm.
We're good, right? But you don't always, you want to try not to swing, like you said, on the pendulum extremes, but scaling back, which is the question you asked, what do we do if we've been inconsistent for an extensive period of time? Okay, so now going forward, you let your child know, listen, going forward, I've done you a disservice by letting things go too long and being honest with your child. Be honest, because you know that you're wrong. They know that you're wrong, but you're behaving like you're not wrong. Be honest.
The
I've done you a disservice.
strategies that you're laying out for parents
Mhm.
can almost simultaneously be applied for coaches.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, right? It's like
Yeah.
you have to
Mhm.
scale instead of like going from starting to not starting, right? Then it's the reduction of playing time, or the other way, the increase of playing time based on
Yes.
the reward, right? The consequences,
Yes.
the swings.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
when parents are listening, coaches should be listening as well, going, I can apply some
Yes.
of these practices, yeah, into my
Yeah.
coaching. Because ultimately, as a coach, whether you're in performance or you're doing the skill portion, you are managing a personality, you're managing a behavior,
Mhm.
you're not just managing the skill,
No. It's a
you're
whole
managing how that skill is developed through those other factors.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why this conversation needs to happen, and more of it needs to happen, because the coaches often feel like, well, they're going to put it on the parent,
Yeah.
or the kid or the home. And yes, we've agreed it all starts at home.
Yes. Yes.
But
And we also agreed that coaches and teachers are an extension of home.
exactly. So you
Yeah.
can go say it's the home, but who are they with the most? What environment is better for them at the moment?
Right.
Maybe home environment is not conducive
Yeah.
to
Because
their development. Maybe they come out and they act out at practice because of what's going on at home, and it's not environment. So having those strategies about communicating, having the strategies about understanding the consequences for athletes playing or not playing, or how they're being developed.
Right.
That's why we have to show the video. We have to communicate this way in order for them to understand, because they're not listening. They're not. So it's my job to go, well, how do we get them engaged? And then how do we get them involved? How do we keep them involved?
Right.
How do we make it fun still?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want you not to come to the weight room because it's always hard.
Yeah. We want to
You're
engage.
doing this thing, yeah, you're doing this thing to improve your skill. You're doing this thing to
Right.
improve your mental health. You're doing all of these other aspects of it. But we're not talking about the nuances
Yeah.
of sport, and how screen time has affected the,
Yeah.
how it's being made now, right? Rules are being changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super important.
Yeah. Lot of work to be done. But what you said is huge, and that's exactly what it is. That what coaches can do to continue being efficient and what parents can do to continue being efficient is almost one and the same in a lot of ways, right? Because we're trying to raise athletes, individuals with good character, not just good skill, good character,
Yeah,
right? Because
absolutely.
should they make it to that next level, whatever it is for them, we need them to be able to respond well to that. And that is in their character, because they got the skill. They a lot of them, they have it, right? But
Exactly.
they have a hard time responding to life. They don't really know what to do with it. So it's the relationship building, it's the communication, it's the coaches noticing something with an athlete and saying, hey, parent, let me talk to you. This is what we're working on. So if they come home and say this is true, because I'm on them about this, or if they come home and say this, no, that's the opposite of what we're working on. This is actually what it is. So
Right.
it's having those proactive conversations And is it extra work? Yeah. But I always say in what we do, our currency is human beings. Money, you can make that back, right? We don't like to lose money, but you can make money back.
You could, sure.
When you're working with lives, you gotta be
It's a different thing. And it's being taken down several different roads. Some of them are concerning because their coaches are still operating in a 20-year, 30-year scale. This is how we did it. And parents are in the same boat, right? Well,
yeah.
When I worked out or when I played football or when I played soccer, it was this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I, adapting and making those changes along the way as a parent and as a coach is super important but it's recognizing, and it's that self-awareness as a coach to go, okay, what is going on with how, and I get the benefit because I'm a parent as well, but there's, coaches and trainers out there that are young and they don't have kids or, they don't want kids, and it's okay, but you're still working with kids. You should really understand how, you should still understand how these things are being maneuvered, how technology is being played a part.
Right.
So, for example, we have all this technology, but yet our injury rates continue to increase.
Right.
Well, how is that possible? We have the best technology to date in predicting injuries and looking at movements and hamstring injuries. But the nuances of exercise selection, the nuances of sleep, the nuances of screen time are not being looked into because we want to blanket everything.
We want a quick fix.
Quick fix.
We want a quick fix. Yeah. Nutrition, all of that.
Nutrition.
It's not huge. Being considered the way that it should. And you're right. We're so advanced, but so behind. It's what I think technology has messed us up with is this idea that the things that used to work, none of them can work anymore. And that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. There are things that have worked for decades that we need to keep in the mix. And then there's some changes, some pivots that we do need to make as we continue to, develop and advance certain areas in society, but don't throw it all away. So it's the same thing with parenting. Don't throw it all away.
You took the word out of my mouth because I was going to, what does parenting look like in the future then? Scary.
Yeah, it's getting scary because like I said, parents are co-parenting with technology, and just it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And I empathize with it from a parent perspective, and I empathize with it from a therapeutic perspective, right? Something that I usually just ask my parents all the time, and it causes them to think, and it usually motivates the change. How much time are you actually spending talking and hanging out with your child? And usually if you feel guilt or discomfort, usually there's always nuances. If you feel guilt or discomfort with answering that question for yourself, it probably means that it's not enough. It probably
not enough. And then again, as the parent
it's not enough time. You're not bonding enough. So technology is playing a role that a human being should be playing.
So the technology is raising our kids and we've allowed it, right? We've, the infant has an iPad in front of them or watching it on a screen and looking at all the cool colors on the screen. And I really am concerned for the future generations. And again, I think technology is fantastic. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's just how it's going to be used.
Correct. It's how much how much we're consuming it remains the concern, right? Because even you talk about an infant, a 2-year-old being able to maneuver an iPad, that's incredible. That's awesome, right? It's reiterating, lessons of colors and numbers. All that stuff is fantastic. Now, if you say though, oh, this is what my child has been using for the past 3 hours, 2 hours, I'm concerned. Because nothing's wrong with them learning from it. The question is, how much time are they spending on it? Because if they're not getting human time, this is why we have concerns with socialization. They're incredible. They're a totally different human, on IG, TikTok, Snapchat than they are when you meet with them, because they don't know what to do in front of real people.
I've noticed that the eye contact,
Oh,
the the ability to just look at somebody in the face, make
yeah.
eye contact, that's
Mhm.
gone. Shaking hands is
Articulate words, even
kind of
articulating the
gone.
words.
Yeah.
They're uncomfortable because when you've moved from a place of having to call on the phone and interact directly to, I literally can text everything that I want to say, or I can post images of it, it makes that direct contact take a backseat. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you're less comfortable with it.
Right.
So that's what happens. It's
Yeah.
just less practice, right? I remember, I joke with my children all the time. I was like, all these birthdays that we text about, I remember there was a time where you had to call because that was the only way to speak with the person. And that was a much different interaction than what we have now when we're sending a text, happy birthday, happy birthday. A lot of time is not being taken to just focus in on this loved one or this friend and say, I'm
Man.
thinking of you. What have you done? And again, there's a whole convenience to it, but it removes that direct voice, that person to person interaction, and it's doing us a disservice. It is. It's
Yeah,
doing us a
100%.
disservice.
And it brought me back to the moments where I had a flip phone.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I yeah, I think having a flip phone now is obviously you can do it,
Yeah.
but having the discipline to, have the flip phone only because
Mhm.
you want to hear someone's voice
Yeah.
is probably how not going to happen.
Correct. Correct.
Hmm.
So it comes back to what you were saying, just what are we gonna do? Like, how do we manage that? So as it relates to the home, it's reiterating to parents that it's up to you to create structure for your children, right?
I think parents have now gone the other way and go, no,
Mhm.
the clubs and the schools are going to create the structure, and I'm just going to kind of fall in place.
Yeah, and that's a mistake. That's a mistake because the ultimate responsibility for this human being is the parent. It's not the school, it's not the teacher, it's
Correct.
not the coach.
Correct.
It's the parent. And it doesn't mean all of these activities and things are not beneficial. I myself partake in several of these activities, but what I do know is that ultimate responsibility for my child is on me. And it's even
Yeah.
up to me to say, as beneficial as this is, that choice that my child made, it doesn't grant them the privilege of taking part in that this week, because
Mm,
that's a privilege. Clubs, sports, they're privileges. They're not necessities. They're incredible what they do for the individual. But it's
sure.
also this messaging of, do you understand that you're not entitled to these
Mm,
things? Do you
hmm.
understand that this is a privilege? Oh, you don't. Okay, that's partially my fault as a parent. Because at some point in this process, I've made you believe that that is an essential in your life or an entitlement that you have. And it is not. It's not
It's
entitled.
not because we want to foster the dream, right?
Yeah.
We
We
want
love
to
our
we want to
children. We want to see them,
we want to see them succeed and we want to see them grow, but we
yeah.
also have a tendency to live through the child. Like, look what's available now. I can do this. I can, and little, little Jane and John, and who,
Yeah.
it's just these, and you try so hard not to do that. I mean,
It's hard.
yes, meaning my son plays soccer. I played soccer,
Hmm.
but I don't identify him as a soccer player. I identify him as my son.
Right.
Where kids are
Right.
identifying themselves as that thing. I'm a TikToker, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a soccer player, I'm a basketball
It's
player.
true. It's their identity.
It's their identity. And looking
Hmm.
at that and how we coach and train
Yeah.
is part of, yeah, you're lifting weights, but you're also doing this for your health.
Right. Right.
Back if you went back
Right.
to the basics, if I remove the sport,
Hmm. Hmm.
yes, exercise selection matters for the sport. I'm
Yeah.
I'm very, very picky and selective, and But again, if we remove all of the sport, it comes back to it's good for your health.
It is.
It's good for your health, good for your
Correct.
mental health, good for your physical well-being. And you don't have to do it all day long. You don't have, right? Just get in, do what you need to do, and get out. And it's the same approach of having that small little bit of discipline to check in on your phone and then get away from your phone, or maybe set a screen time up for yourself, or whatever other strategies are out there. But for people that want to know more about creating those strategies, do you have information on a website? Do you have contact information where someone can contact your clinicians and your company to go, hey, this is the most up-to-date information. This is what we're applying in practice. This is what it's actually practical, right? We're not, we don't want to give anybody unpractical advice, or, again, when it goes back to training, I don't want to do this exercise when it's not going to really be applied to the sport. So what strategies, what information can be done?
So to reach the practice, the name of our practice is Acknowledge You Counseling and Consulting Services. You can definitely find us on IG. We're acknowledge_U. Or of course, you can visit our website, which is acknowledgeucc.com. You can call or even text our office as well.
Oh, there you go.
904-370-3282. So you can reach out to us that way. And it's just a matter of reaching out and saying, hey, this is what I need. And based on what you need, that's how we help to match you with an appropriate clinician. And then depending on what's going on in your household, that's how we make recommendations and assist you with creating structure. Or sometimes for parents, it's too structured. And we're like, okay, they're getting older. We gotta back up.
Scale back a little bit. Oh, we didn't even touch base on that parent. I missed the boat there, but maybe we'll talk about that in the next podcast.
we totally can, for sure. So sometimes it's so subjective to what's going on in the household. And what we do understand on my team is that we do not run your household. And as therapists, contrary to popular belief, we also don't give you advice. We give you education and we lay out some options, and it's up to you to pick the option that works best for your household, because none of us can tell you how to run your home, right? But we are here to support you. We are here to educate you and guide you. And we do have services where sometimes we meet with the teens and then we do collaborative sessions with their parents along the way, depending on what they're working through. So we have lots of options. It's just a matter of reaching out and letting us know what you're looking for. And then we will let you know if we can provide that service to you.
That's awesome. And congratulations on the immense growth of Acknowledge You. I think it's been fun to watch.
Thank you.
And I'll put Jason in as well, because he runs For the Kids basketball. And it's been fun to watch you guys grow as business owners. It just, your kids are growing, and it's just this wild thing to see. But yeah, it's very, very cool. Thank you so much for coming on, talking, and giving some of those strategies and those little kind of tidbits about it, and making it seem, I just didn't want to seem crazy. I didn't want to seem like it was an old guy. Oh, look at this old guy. He's just,
No, you're not crazy. You're not crazy at all. I always enjoy our time just being able to really talk, about what we see and the different roles that we play. And I also want to thank you for being one of our #1 supporters from the beginning, just motivating us by your living, by action, and then also by your words, and just creating opportunities like these for us to get on and talk and, promote our companies and things like that. So thank you so much. I know that we are helping in different ways. Nevertheless, it's all needed. So it's always nice to know that there's others, in different industries speaking the same language, focus on the same things: character development, youth advancement, parent and family advancement. It's always good to be able to say, I can refer you and I know this person. I can vouch for their character, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I always appreciate, connecting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun to talk, and I'll be reaching out to Jason soon, and we're having different conversations.
I'm sure y'all will have a good time with that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, I appreciate it, guys. Please go to their website, check it out, acknowledgeucc.com. Is that correct?
Yes.
.com. Located in Orange Park, Florida. So if you're not local, that doesn't mean that you don't have to reach out, right? Still reach out.
Correct. Yes, we do
Awesome.
virtual and in person.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.